Next up, Kieran, we are at the Arctic Circle at Aurora Spirits with their Bivrost whiskey brand. A distillery you've had, well, tried once or twice before, is that right?
Yeah, only once or twice.
Okay.
Got some experience with other Scandinavian whiskey, but less so with this one in particular. So it's quite nice going into something with no sort of preconceived ideas of what to expect.
Yeah, your first experience of it, was it kind of a good one in general, or was it a bit too early to form an opinion?
Yeah, you wouldn't want to form an opinion on one dram, but my takeaway was it was actually quite singular. I hadn't really tried many whiskies with that kind of flavour profile before. It was quite individualistic, shall we say.
Okay.
So I think, well, we'll see if this one is in a similar ballpark or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the distillery, their story is very interesting. They're very transparent about the struggles they've had. I think they are quite sort of quirky and quite experimental. I think you'd have to be quite adventurous to open up a distillery in the Arctic Circle and expect it to go very smoothly. So they've had some bumps along the road, but you know, the handful of expressions I've had, as you say, they've been full of character, quite quirky, quite different. And I think they were set up in 2016, so they're not a brand new distillery. So the whiskies will have a bit of age to it. But yeah, it's nice to try brands that you aren't too familiar with. As you say, you often have a lot of preconceptions, so we'll see how we get on with this one. This particular expression is Vanaheim, a limited edition and finished in teak casks. So teak is just a type of wood that isn't oak. So with single malt Scotch, obviously it's very tightly regulated. Everything has to be oak. So yeah, I think if this one tastes significantly different to Scotch, we're going to put it down to these teak casks. So yeah, very excited to try this. Shall we crack it open and see what's going on?
Yeah, it's quite impressive what Aurora Spirits have done. You know, you said they're quite a young distillery, not the newest in the world, obviously, but they've put out quite an impressive range. You know, each one they've done is slightly different, so each whiskey's offering something a bit different, but they're still obviously got a bit of a distillery profile that they're going for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think obviously it's not all about the packaging, but their branding is quite distinct. Their labelling is quite interesting. They like their kind of mythology. So it's, fun to see. So hopefully the whiskey lives up to the fun labels. Yeah. Have a try.
Yeah, unfortunately my Norse mythology is...
Yeah, rusty.
Yeah,
mine as well, actually.
I was going to say non-existent, but so it would be interesting to know if there's any sort of correlation between the stories of the names and the sort of flavour profile they were aiming for with that whiskey. But I think there's 9 in the series, so I think, it's a nice concept, but I imagine they've probably struggled to have that link the whole way through. But this one will be interesting to try. We'll give it a quick nose. Is there anything jumping out to you? It's quite, I don't know, is it smoke or is it just like a coastal characteristic I'm getting? I think there's like a sort of icing sugar sweetness that's trying to cut through a more dominant kind of muskiness in a way. Yeah,
it's definitely not a bright and breezy nose. It's quite, for me, it smells quite damp. It's quite heavy. I don't want to say mouldy, that's a very negative word, but it's quite, damp is probably a good way. It's probably the main word for me. Is it off-putting, or is it quite...
No, not really, because I think you're right about the dampness. As soon as you said that, I was like, oh yeah, damp cardboard, damp paper, this is what's making... And you're right, though, that phrase doesn't really have a lot of positive connotations to it, but it's there is an inviting element to it. As I said, there is like a sweetness almost trying to fight through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it very, very much does depend on what your flavour profile is and what sort of whiskies you're used to. I know you're a big fan of Islay single malts, so this, it's a different profile, but it's maybe similar in terms of complexity. Whereas I think for those who are completely new to whiskey or perhaps used to blends or perhaps Irish whiskey, this is going to blow their heads off.
It's even just on the nose, it's radically different from a lot of whiskies that I've tried.
Absolutely. But I think, as I say, if you're used to Campbelltown whiskies, if you're used to drams which are quite funky and quite farmyardy, this might be right up your street. So we'll give it a little taste. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, that's got a really distinctive finish coming through. Is it a... Kind of took me by surprise, actually. How would you describe that? Is it a sweetness? Is it a...
Yeah, it's like a sort of herbal sweetness. I wouldn't have... maybe nosing it, I'd have been able to pinpoint this as a whiskey, but upon drinking it, and especially on the finish, I'm like, that's not really like anything I've had before.
I've never had a finish... I've never tasted anything like that. It's really... I don't know. Generally, I like whiskies that take me by surprise, and this has taken me by surprise. But I'm not sure if it's a good surprise. It's kind of, again, it's got a finish that lingers, which is generally a good thing. But again, for this one, I'm almost not, I don't know, I almost wish it would disappear a bit quicker.
Yeah.
It's got a funny aftertaste.
Yeah, it really lingers for a whiskey that I'm assuming is, well, it must be very young. You don't normally associate big, long finishes with young whiskey sometimes. But yeah, it's intriguing. I think now that I'm going back to smell it after tasting it, I'm actually getting that almost like kind of toothpaste kind of quality.
I was thinking minty. I was very much in the bathroom when I was thinking about words to describe this, and it's quite, I don't know, it's almost like a lavender sort of soapiness to it. There is something slightly sort of herbal and minty, but it just doesn't really fit with the nose for me. I think the other Bivrosts I've had have been great because they've been quite, like, they're not peated, but they feel smoky and they feel quite rugged and quite earthy, and that's been quite nice. This just feels very confused for me. I don't know. Are you enjoying it? I mean, you quite like a whiskey that's challenging.
Yeah, there's definitely something to wrestle with here. You know, I feel like between my palate and my mind, I'm grappling to find the words to describe it, and I'm on the losing side. The Dram's winning, but I don't know if I'd go mad and run out and buy a bottle if I could, but right now I wouldn't turn down a second Dram. There is something quite pleasant about it, even though it is totally strange. There's something I'm really enjoying about it.
I think, personally, I'm not enjoying it a huge amount. I can see the appeal because it is different. It does take you by surprise. For me, that lingering finish isn't particularly pleasant. I think I like a lingering finish when it's smoke and it's sort of that wispy barbecue thing, and it's delicious. This is just, it's like feels like an off note for me that I'm not enjoying it. But it's, obviously whiskey's subjective, just depends what you're into, what mood you're in. So yeah, one I'd maybe revisit in future, but not buy a bottle personally. So yeah, bit of an oddity, good thing to try, but it's a thumbs down for me personally.
Yeah, I suppose I'm on the not quite full
thumb
up.
Don't get carried away.
I'm on my way up there though. It's pleasant and it's intriguing. I think's the main word. That's just unlike any other whiskey I've had.
It's not the best Bivrost I've had. Which is pretty...
Saying something. Yeah.
Well, cheers anyway.
Cheers.
Good to try some different. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more Bevvy content. We want to hear what you think, your best whiskey experiences, the whiskies you want us to try. It's a really exciting journey we're on, so make sure to join us. Download the Bevvy app on Google Play and App Store to keep track of your whiskey journey, connect with your whiskey friends, keep track of your favourites, anything you could ever want to do with whiskey, all in one place. It's the definitive whiskey companion.